What's up, Rachel?
Hey.
Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Yeah. What's the life of Rachel looking like these days?
Let's see, man. It's been a wild, past year.
Yeah.
I've been focusing a lot on mural work, and I work with the Bay Area Mural Program as the creative director, and then I officially founded Wolfpack Arts LLC as my mural company this year, early in 2021. So life right now looks like a lot of admin work, which is new for me.
Yeah.
I'm spending more time behind the scenes, designing stuff, talking with clients, organizing, getting people together, teaching classes. Mm-hmm. And then I'm about to, as summer approaches, that's pretty much mural season. So going from winter time of I feel like a lot of prep and admin into being out in the street painting murals. Yeah. So the summer is gonna look like a couple women who I've been kind of working with over the past year or two are going to be assisting on a lot of large murals that I'm going to be working on, and a lot of artivism, if you will.
Oh yeah, I like that, artivism. That's dope. Yeah. Nice. And you and Polani have known each other for how long?
I don't know, 3-4 years. Time is so weird when you get older.
It flies by so fast.
2 years. I'm that's been
longer than that. Yeah, we met through mutual friends from my good friend Raquel. Mm-hmm. And I fell in love with Rachel. She's a badass.
Likewise.
Yeah. So we've stayed connected, and we've also done a collaboration together with Neo, No End of Designs, with my brand. She's actually rocking a piece today.
Nice. For sure.
I basically haven't taken this off since you sent it to me. I live in this now.
Babe, go-to pieces, multifunctional, comfort, and swag. Yes.
Yeah.
Timelessness.
Yeah. But I think we did the fashion drop 2 years ago, and that was kind of a big bonding experience, I feel like.
Yeah.
I brought Rachel out to Portland, and that was actually the last event that I did before the pre-COVID. We did We Are the Resilient launch, and she was able to fly in. I was so grateful to have her and to meet a bunch of the people from the Portland community, the arts community, from all different walks of life.
Yeah, where are you from originally?
I'm from Oregon.
Okay.
I lived in Portland, between the time I was 18 and 21. Which I feel like maybe I met you around. No, I met you after that even. I grew up in Eugene, Oregon, and then I moved to Portland for a while, and then kind of wiggled my way down to the Bay. I was here often, bouncing back and forth. And, officially moved 10 years ago now.
Okay. And you've been painting. I remember seeing photos on your Instagram of you painting when you were little. You've been painting.
Yes.
For a while.
Yeah. It's basically been, I feel so I'm adopted.
Okay.
I mentioned that to say that I've had an interesting picture of nature versus nurture, and I see so much of my hand and my natural style in the way that both my birth mother and birth father draw, and both of them have a creative inclination.
Okay.
I feel that was from the gate, just my way of expressing.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then when did you take on art more so professionally? Like when you were like, this is my thing?
Yeah, I'd say around the time I was like 19 or something. I was living in Portland, and I was in an ethos with a lot of artists. Like Etsy had just started to become really popular. A lot of people I knew were just like crafting, making stuff, selling it on Etsy, running their businesses like that. I was like, oh, okay, that's like a way for this to work. That's interesting. There were also like a lot of festivals happening. I was getting asked to live paint at different events and stuff like that. So it kind of turned into doing a lot of performance painting, having like a big canvas set up at festivals. When I ended up moving to Oakland, I moved in with a collective of like 13 people, 4 of whom were painting pretty regularly, and we started like going to festival after festival after festival all summer, creating big collaborative pieces, and then like throwing our own little art shows and making it work. So I think like that's the beginning of really taking it seriously, of being like, I have like side hustles and I have like 3 jobs, but I'm like want to be in the studio focusing, on this.
And where do you draw inspiration from?
I draw inspiration from a lot of places. I feel like my current practice is really rooted, like my mural work practice is specifically rooted in really just like painting my homies and the people who are in my life. I live in Oakland because of its creative community and because of its diversity and because of its political activism. And I just find myself surrounded by all of these epic, music producers, artists, boundary pushing, political activists, people who are just like deeply invested in community, in building and creating like rich healing spaces full of art, full of creativity, and so I'm like, give people their flowers while they're here, paint them 40 feet tall on a building, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm also in touch with all of these people who are pushing boundaries as far as our understanding of gender and our understanding of racial equality and our understanding of like what the world can be. And so I found it like pretty amazing to paint people I know, to shine a light on like what they're doing, because then people are like, who is that person? Why'd you paint them? And you're like, oh, I'm glad you asked. Like, let me tell you, they're fucking dope, That's been the main focus recently.
Nice. And what keeps you going? Like what? I know this year has been wild. Unexplainable in many ways. But it's like, what keeps you going? What keeps you inspired? What keeps you just alive? And
I guess it's gotten easier over the past year in some ways. I mean, it's never been easy, and so like I've literally just kept going until it finally would get easier, and it's like finally getting a little bit easier to continue having work coming in and all of that. My passion has always been art, and my personal compass is always directed towards service. And so it's really been about collapsing those two things so that my passion can be of service. So like that's my kind of like, that's my compass, I guess I would say. And then receiving feedback that it's actually effective keeps me going, right? Like I've received a lot of feedback through the artwork I've been putting out about like direct feedback from people walking by on the street and looking and being like, that's fucking dope, that looks like my sister, or like, oh man, that reminds me of my daughter, or just like oh, I walk down the street every day and it's gray and it's dull, and you're like making it feel like home, or you're making it feel like somewhere I want to be. Or if you're sharing a story like the Black Panther mural that I just worked on, Women of the Black Panther Party, I painted based on all these historical photographs and from their documents and all of this stuff that's like, now the schools are coming by with their classes, educating people. So getting this feedback of like the direct impact that can have
on others,
that's motivating as fuck. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I feel like when I started dipping into what's beyond just me, and there is so much sole purpose in being of service to others, and definitely a lot of healing that happens within that, just connecting with other people through your work.
It's a love language.
Yeah, and like I think a lot of the time it's like you're adding the subtle touches to the world that people don't even think they need. Like most people you don't think about the way a physical space influences you, but the way that like colors are arranged, the way that things are arranged around you, the visual landscape you live in, like tells you something about that space, about your feeling. It has an effect on your physiology and your psychology.
Right. How do you feel the overflow of art in Oakland right now is affecting just the environment, like just the vibe, as opposed to maybe when there is less art up, when there's less color up,
I mean, Oakland finally looks like what it feels like to live here and to be with the people who are part of building culture here. Like, seeing everything that happened downtown is like, that's what the people are about.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's what the people, you see, Rifa Love did a huge Emory Douglas piece. Emory Douglas was the artist for the Black Panther newspaper back in the day. He still resides in the Bay Area. And, Rifa did this huge Emory Douglas piece. We have like tons of protest art, of educational art, of racial justice art, of just like calls for what we want to see. And throughout all of this, like, I just keep being so grateful to live in Oakland because I feel safe here, because I'm surrounded, by people who aren't going to stand for any racism or any bullshit, you know what I mean? And people who are really pushing for change and standing up. So that's what I see when I see downtown. I see power, and I see like reclamation of space, that has felt kind of alienating over the past 10 years of development and, alteration to the landscape.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like even though even though the work that's being put out is ephemeral, in a way, I'd like to know what is something that you would leave behind as an artifact.
I like to imagine that the murals last long enough somehow that even after, whatever, you could scrape the moss and and like scrub down the building and you'd be like, what is this? Maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. So, which is one reason I've always loved the idea of like monuments, like bronze, steel, stone, something more permanent. So I fantasize about that. I'd love to leave like an official monument behind, but it's a hard question to answer. It's a deep one, and like hindsight is 20/20, right? I feel like it's hard to know. I wonder what will last.
Right.
And I hope something does.
Yeah, definitely.
For future generations to come.
Yeah.
It's like leaving your imprint.
Yeah. I mean, I think in story is where you leave imprint, right? I think that's how a lot of culture is passed on, and that's how we teach young people, right, is through story. So I think that's something that lasts generation to generation. So maybe, you do something powerful enough to for that story to continue to be shared and to be valuable over time. So I guess providing value then is the imprint, right? That you can manage to touch enough people and create enough movement, and that happens in community, right? That happens from being expansive, from letting ideas live outside of you, from like handing ownership to other people and creating movements as a community, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I love that. So I love your style.
Thanks.
And I know y'all have collaborated on some pieces with your line, No End Designs. Tell me about your fashion inspiration.
Yeah. Man, well, like growing up, tomboy all day. I was like baggy pants, like t-shirts. I was all about like looking like a dude, and so I feel like then I kind of swung super femme, and then I kind of, you know, got into alternative culture. I was into punk rock. I was wearing all this, you know, studded belts, and it was late 90s, early 2000s. Grunge was cool. Your eyebrows were like tiny lines. And your little like platform boots, which all of that shit is back now, right? Then I was like full on raver, you know, making all my own clothes, spandex, this, that. Then, you know, I've just swung like so many different directions and explored what you're able to do with your body. I feel like I've always just been like curious about textures and about like the way different fabrics feel and look together, pairing things unexpectedly. So I feel like within exploring all of those aesthetics of like hip hop and raver and punk and like all of these different vibes, that like my perfect outfits are when I like magically combine a little bit of each of those things in a way that's like full-bodied and eclectic and colorful. You know, I'm interested in like big earrings. I'm interested in like clunky tribal jewelry, like fishnet bodysuits and baggy TLC jeans with like platform shoes and you know, a giant overcoat or something. Combinations, like unexpected combinations. So the line that we worked on together was kind of looking at those combinations of like corseting, like having like a button up like this and then corseting the sides. So having like a you know, a feminine kind of touch on on a mask, a more mask garment. And I love the idea of playing with the androgynous. Like that's something I've always liked to embody is like just to wave around in gender and play with like what it feels like, what you feel like when you're in baggy clothes, and then you know. Yeah.
And what about musically? Like, what are you listening to these days?
And what are you bumping?
What have I been listening to? Oh my God, I've been like listening to audiobooks all the time. Actually, recently. I feel like I had like last year's playlist, right? And now I'm like, oh, it's a new year, like time to make a new playlist. From my old playlist, I definitely like always return to Earth Gang.
Yes.
I love Seb DeLiza on some like spooky lyrical shit. She did that song Human. That's like really moody, almost on some Portishead type vibe.
Okay.
JID is pretty dope. I was listening to a lot of JID and the new Dreamville, not so new anymore, but that came out last year. I was pretty into all those. And then Spotify's been my best friend of just like, give me a vibe.
Yeah.
Tana Riel, really dope R&B. She's been like building her own independent kind of music situation out of LA, and she's got some really special stuff. And then I've been listening to like audiobooks a lot, and my favorite new audiobook is, I forget her middle name, Lovey Jones. She's a Nigerian author, and she has a book called Professional Troublemaker. And that was like my hype book. The last like 2 weeks, I put it on every day when I drive into town, which is like a 30-minute drive, and she's just like hyping you up.
Nice.
I love that. motivation and inspiration all in one.
Well, we love what you have going on, your work. We're excited to see more come out of you in the next year.
Thank you.
And forevermore.
You too.
Yes, always going to support.
And I have one last question. If you had the world's attention for 1 minute, what would you say? What would you tell us? What would you let us know?
What would I say?
It's an even deeper one.
It's a deep one. It's a good one.
Like anything that you could say in 1 minute with the world's attention was going to be on some like corny shit. Like, you should love yourself more, because I really believe that you should love yourself more, because if you like are actually thinking about what self-love is, then you're going to be a better person for like everybody around you. And I think we spend a lot of time in external,
Right.
Trying to solve things outside, and a lot of the time there's like more work to do in here. I think most of the woes we have in the world are like issues people need to fix with themselves, are like deep pains and traumas and relived like over and over, generation to generation, that take deconstructing inside yourself. So instead of like yelling out here or fighting or worrying about what other people are doing and policing their bodies, minds, spirits in whatever way, like inside.
Bring it back. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For sitting down with us and chatting and showcasing how you rep your tribe and rep yourself and all that you do. And
So sharing your story.
Yeah, thanks, P.
Love you.
I love you too.
dope. Cool. All right.
Any shout outs?
Any shout outs?
Like anyone, my mom, okay. Who do I want to shout out? Shout out y'all for coming through and putting together this project. Shout out Bay Area Mural Program, my mural family here in the Bay. Shout out Timothy B, working on a fab mural across from the police station, a Black Panther mural, super badass. Shout out to Zoe Adaya Boston. Shout out to my boyfriend Dylan Blackstone, dude. Shout out to Pearl Wolfe, Bill Goldsmith, and Elijah Pachelke, Magnolia Spring Rainbow, for making me and raising me.
All the love.
Nice.
Yay. Yay, yay.